Hello, YouTubers. I put a link to a YouTube short that has a Native American with acting, with theater. It has um, a colonist or an early states actor, someone acting to be an early colonist or early states actor, as roles with the names of the people of the sciences, including the names of celebrities and like actors, the experts, where their syntax is collusion slash S, leaving out and replacing what our first Native American founders communicated. Our founders, plural, communicated for themselves to be referred to as James Madison singular. And then they went and got George Washington to agree to use their plan and to help them counter extort to force the rest of the founders, Native Americans and colonists, and they had to leave slavery entrenched because there was no other means to uproot it. And that wasn't just that law; it was no other means to uproot the laws that were equivalent as against everyone, equivalent as three ways manifest: torture, extortion, and fact-cheating nature slavery. Therefore, physically. So this would have brought up and changed the nature of all kinds of issues. Subject treatments are through a breaching method, leaving out and replacing and valuing them having been replaced. And fake exceptions in exception nature. There are 6 subject treatments leaving out except, in other words, oh, well, you broke the law and that's my job. It says you're not supposed to be speaking about that with black or white. They change what nature communicates with black and white. Black people, they slander our black pupils and our whites of eyes. And they want to shoot. They want to pretend they can speak for serious things like wars. They can't even tell a revolution honestly. James Madison's plan and the founders behind him that leveraged that means to counter extort at 13 colonies that were the possession of more than one country, and those countries too were the possessions of not just their international companies and all that, all used remotely since semi-ancient times, from off their locations, their identities of sophistication. Our only sophistication as criminal insidious natures of positive treatments and negative treatments, in collusion with the breaching method slash S, as that slash S part of, as the nature. Oh, come on. Like nature can be used too. Someone could say, okay, well, replacing what nature communicates with black pupils, whites of eyes, is a predicate acts with facts method. And this can be true all the way, but people could say, oh, come on. Oh, bring it before the court. If the court says collusion, there's also differential collusion. Like one of the things that witch trials are about, and how slavery was entrenched in northern colonies and southern colonies, how they were criminally foreign influenced slash hyper criminally foreign influenced. No, because there was a distinct. Science shows us to discern how non-distinctly, two, distinctly possessed enforced roles with such things. Names at all locations slash S. It was roles with a different smack. We have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. So science had obligations to explain how our founders declassified. They didn't have free speech. No one had free speech. So they had to force everyone else to make a unity. And just because nature's how nature forces us simultaneously to be inseparable species body as volume. And simultaneously, it won't mix with that being an individual species body of individual bodies. All group differences show how and why is because more and more how and why more and more hyper additional nature is being made as that identity of value slash value progression that is showing us its body when we are shown how distinct species bodies are distinct, are non-distinct, and are simultaneous for that further slash hyper simultaneous, where its individual body of value progression is discernible scientific value, such value progression. It comes simultaneously with individual parts of itself inseparable from that, and that is the rest of the nature that doesn't fit here. Just like your complete identity does not fit with the tip of the hair on your head, but it does anyway. Even if you cut it off your head and leave it on the ground and walk away, because of its volume. That is everything, and that is really and why and how you are yourself. All exceptions and exception nature show individually grouped and together. We can all agree to be systems tactilitarian than its own, with positive and negative treatments and appreciation syntactically don't. As nature relative with that. Had they, in other words. So in other words, please follow mandated law for the interbranch. I'll show them. I'll show you guys how we could show how answers means out of nowhere, like to solve the subject treatments. As we have to use exception. We have to appreciate exceptions nature. And we're going to show the value of quality aspects in nature inside the nature of debate between everyone, A through Z, what it contains that no one discerned. But we could discern it as being and has been used remotely, criminally foreign influence / hypercriminally foreign influence. It has roles, natures of integrity, natures of worth. Like, in other words, like the names of the people, the sciences, the worth of that. Not just monetary. I mean, worth like, the relativity of it. They have our founders' words used with books, or they have people just experts on them. They have our founders' words used, leaving out how they get classified and how nature shows us they didn't have free speech. And everyone had to pretend other to an extent, /s, at the same time, otherwise be sensed. And that would be adapted to even if that body was a majority of people, even if it was everyone. Any grouping of countries since semi-ancient times that tries to counter what the breaching method caused. They're still reliant upon subject treatments that are collusion /s. Fact, treatment, nature, quality aspects, and nature itself as collusion. As criminal, I'm not a lawyer. There is not just criminal insidiousness. There is criminal insidiousness / hypercriminal insidiousness. Because what no one wanted roles with before our founders were born, that was entrenched northern colonies, southern colonies, more than 13. It was entrenched sickly distinctly. But it was also sickly non-distinctly. And even though there were other names with the possessions of that, the experts on the knowledge of good and evil about that, who knows the most about that, they're using that to get over on people we have since we are little kids. With nature communicates how to answer that properly. But they have self-valued roles with criminal insidiousness / hypercriminal insidious natures of uses of the words, the syntax, and or the nature themselves of the names of the people, the sciences, including of the sports. Including of the differences of guilt, some way completely on their own, Facebook leaders and employees and security. In some ways, the FBI with them. Some ways, Connecticut courts with them. Some ways, the judicial offices with them. And the differences of guilt between when it's the judicial branch offices, roles of guilt increasingly with all kinds of natures of all sides of cases and crime scenes, including body dumping spots and the murder scenes, are people involved with, changing and faking reality increasingly. And now they say, oh, these people did this. These are people involved with predicate acts with facts, and with uses of words like crimes, of punishment, and of corrections simultaneously. The Connecticut corrections officers have people involved with home break-ins in my area through time, directly and indirectly, with a Joe DeMoro. I don't know all their names. And this is what people from my grammar school say. And he's got roles with years apart, child abusers, leaders of kids, sexual, medical, his brother, John DeMoro. as roles of this. Also, police departments with the Paul Demor's Market, where it is now in Rocky Hill, and spots next to it, and where it was in Hartford, next to Hartford Hospital. Also with Aiello's Kitchen, involved with the former Mayor Gold and his family members and other people tied to him, like a Joe Aiello, involved with all kinds of federal evidence of crimes, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and sexual and medical offenders of kids, with people at the Hartford Hospital putting fake transcripts in databases, and roles of identity theft, fraud, federal evidence of crimes, with people next to the Harvard Hospital through time, involved with names at and next to campuses, involved with sequence shifts, putting fake things in databases, and then acting tied to it. A whole bunch of proven child abusers, leaders of the kids, with direct and indirect roles with the Aiello family. They sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. They have roles with federal evidences, crimes, identity theft, frauds, and slanders, with people with businesses and a fire department next to Trinity College. There are people at Trinity College also with Joshua Schumack, who put fake things in databases and told a whole bunch of lies to some girl who's associated with as a friend of a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin's co-defendants, like a Dominic Lepriata, John LeConte, and Thaddeus Grabowski had and have roles of all kinds of natures of organized crimes and of child abuses acts, with names and families that were involved at and next to elderly homes, at and next to the judicial branch offices and the corrections offices, involved with all kinds of sick natures of uses, of identities, of employments, of experts, of the sciences, even of the sports voices, and of theater, replacing what our founders communicated plural about James Madison, his plan. People are not lying on the honesty about the extortion of George Washington, who demonstrably had no choice but to help them with that plan, because he was counter-extorted too. And this is why George Washington had to come to Webb House in Wethersfield in Hartford, Connecticut, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. And even though he had the French general's help, and they had to secure it, they had to they could only, they had to leave slavery entrenched, northern colonies and southern colonies, more than 13. And everyone had to hide about their motivations for roles with the Declaration of Independence, for roles with the Constitutional Convention. And since they're still forced to hide and change what our founders declassified and what nature itself does. On a mass scale, Americans change. In other countries, people change. What people said, and though they self-value roles with predicate acts with facts into databases, self-valued at each age and nature of campus, criminal and serious natures of positive and negative treatments, where the positive, even like intelligence, something positive, they're only criminal and serious natures of intelligence are allowed to be appreciated. And that's also a fake motive too, because everyone's still sensing for the breaching method. Little kids would have been able to answer properly. There's a breaching, human fact, human nature breaching method that we can discern. Having been against Native Americans, individually grouped together, as that same one that made those sick history from before religious messengers were born. Databases, identities of relativity to us. The campuses of the ancient republic for which we stand. Drawn criminally foreign influence, tactically, criminally re-engineered. Increasingly incapable of affording to have discerned with the ancient republic before it became criminally foreign influence, and its campuses system was used to be led by, discerned, to have incapable of having appreciated short words with convictions proper regarding Connecticut interbranch family members and the news with a whole bunch of different countries, including people from Saudi Arabia, involved with switching names, identity rackets with them, differences rackets, leading up to the World Trade Center attack, long term and short term, in it and since, in the difference of guilt at the Connecticut news locations, or the names of the intelligence next to that, or just temporary next to that. That is also recorded being and having been exploited. You have criminally they already showed the prosecutors and judges they had criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, readings of statutes and precedent as all kinds of sick natures of collusion /S with the prisons themselves, their names and their systems. Criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, collusion /S with mixed, totally distinct natures of organized crimes to keep roles with where they're non-distinct, self-value, having been too, because all that is used to effectively use the fact-cheating nature of the names of the people of the sciences to keep them collusion /S against mandated law while pretending to be for it, while roles with a torture, extortion, and fact-cheating nature slavery, therefore physical method against everyone. Not honesty has spoken for what causes negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures in suburbs that were designed tactically denatured before America's founders were even born. Already, everyone had been roles, with the differences racketeering method worse than war crimes that came from since before modern religious messengers were born. And still, leaders do not have free speech in many ways, and they are forced to pretend other because there are locations, areas, and states forcing pretended their integrity, pretended the integrity of their words, their fact-cheating nature, qualities, aspects of nature is value where it is not. In other words, in the way it is value in ways it is not. And with relativity, that is not. There is an identity of hyperrelativity that shows us everything else is relativity. Everything's about relativity, not theory. On a mass scale, people change and fake what people say because there's communications racketeering worse than war crimes. And this method keeps and kept names on all sides of instances as described. See, the interbranch and foreign, even when they're not at those same locations, even when it's not, like even in all sides of criminal and civil cases in the courts, in the police forms and their sources, including interbranch families of work, criminal enterprise, private ones, even when they're not in the same case, to put in the same sequence shifts and databases up by role with that quality aspects and nature, fact-cheating nature that makes subject treatments. That's why how it's relative to where and how why little kids know that the subject treatments, they're leaving out and faking exceptions. In other words. So we have to appreciate the Constitution. We're supposed to have it valued unabridged, and why and how we have rights that are too numerous to have to list. People memorize facts about the sciences, and like the Constitution. Oh, did you read the Constitution? We have to get the Constitution unabridged. They have James Madison's history and communications to us replaced, and all pace. They have his words used, leaving out what he and they declassify about and how nature itself declassified shows us. Our founders did not have free speech in many ways. Everyone had to pretend other, including as any group, including if they were a majority of people, including if it's everyone. Any grouping of countries trying to counter that and what it causes and keeps while they're entertaining those fact-cheating equality aspects in nature haven't been used, they can't be. And they're still used remotely. That's why they say there's all this person's name and that, and they're calling each other names through years while they have serious conflicts. They can't even have fact-cheating nature, quality aspects in nature proper regarding predicate acts with facts. There are whole wire crime acts and methods, mail crime acts and methods, and sick uses of all kinds of databases tied roles with the torture, extortion, slavery. At corrections offices and camp and prisons, involved also at crime scenes increasingly in the campuses. That's why that's part of why the kids are getting so angry. If with some people I saw with titles said the kids are getting angry. I didn't see the video. In other words, it uses the anger, it uses the the arrays of opinions. The intelligence community that has valued their right to lie, where they didn't have a right to lie. Just straight up lying about acting, pretend ties to others. Someone takes a picture, they can't afford to have a quality of fact sheet manager examined there, because these are people that are roles where the breaching method already used. Names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the court's names, and the news names, and the difference of the guilt there or the intelligence next to them already had that time collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists. They have roles with predicate acts with facts, methods, evidence is racketeering, digital evidence is crimes, forensics crimes. Whiting Forensics has wire crime acts and methods in digital crimes with Facebook, and with sex offenders, leaders of kids, first forced roles, and other natures of organized crimes that Whiting Forensics increasingly has with the same house/S involved with retired police chiefs, and a reported one of the people involved too is a reported former roommate of Ray Colon, involved also with a whole bunch of people like named Mendez, involved next to. I never saw them together, but they're involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and as people that attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others when I was a kid, and the people who did go out to the police station like Ray Colon and Chris Walters. Some ways they're family and friends. Some ways the interbranch with them. And with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and now terrorists too. They have time collusions. Also with people named Scalora. And a whole bunch of people. They also quantify how many names. And they put fake conversations with me roles. And like with the Leahy family at Harper Hospital. A whole bunch of people at Harper Hospital and the business houses next to it involved with the Smith family and a Colon family near me. With police confessions, they're forging and switching names. They're trying to make fights between people and or positives they can lie about too. Because these are people who already had roles with courts and the judicial branch offices and the corrections offices. A whole bunch of courts, judges, prosecutors, and their family members involved with federal evidence crimes. And with investigations, investigators use remotely criminally foreign influence. A bunch of police departments involved with the same houses through time, also with the names O'Brien and DeSimone. They're not even in the area anymore. They're involved interstates and intercities and intra-cities and intercampuses and intra-campuses, including kids that were never even in a class together. Their roles putting illusions in databases and making them look real from the other side of the classrooms and things like that. As time collusions increasingly with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists, and as people who colluded at the World Trade Center and at spots next to it, including a court next to it, and as roles with that theme where all names on all sides of cases, their sources, the lawyers, and the court themselves put sequence shifts and news at the same time to prevent the quality of fact sheet nature that nature would have revealed. So it has also with names on with uses of the sides of the campuses. Justin Klavinskis and a Mark Violet also sought me out in my neighborhood before I didn't know they were tied to my neighbors, and they show more and more. They show them they have roles with federal evidence crimes and identity thefts and frauds with the intelligence community from Old Wethersfield founding locations, people around there, all the way through from there to through Route 175 through Wethersfield, through Newington, and into New Britain and around the sides of it. There is a Mark Carone and Kevin Carone who will tell you they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed also with intelligence, with FBI, state police, and other people that people that said they were in a sexual circle with them, with Danielle Perrone. And a Mark Violet is also one of the ones at Harvard Hospital next to it, with people from other countries, overt criminal enterprises, some black KKK, Confederate flag themed, Italian themed, borders countries, and border states names involved. I don't know, like Trinity College and next to it with all these names tied to Ray Colo, and like and to have roles of predicate acts in my area, identity theft, fraud, sequence shifts, putting fake things in the databases at the campuses I went, and with the news. So these are people that lied to my family too behind my back, pretend they knew me. Also with extended family members of one of the houses further involved, with the Joshua Julian, with the principal upskirt nature. I recorded involved with worse before that, and they forced it by using wire and mail crime evidences crimes with the phones and with the digital evidences. Whiting Forensics has roles with that. Also with more security at the campuses, foreign and domestic military, inter-services, families. It's one's tied to a Paul Kelly, as people recorded themselves pretending other, but that's what they were confessing to. Also involved with the Mark Violet confession with the people all along Route 175 and its conjunctions from Old Wethersfield and his educators. I never had a class with Mike Violet. They have roles also with the spots next to and names with the intelligence next to the state capitol in Hartford, Connecticut through time, with foreign and domestic military and medical offenders of kids involved with victims advocates that have collusions with sexual and medical offenders of kids, overt criminal enterprise and private ones not legitimately with the military next to Hartford, next to the state capitol and Harvard Hospital, involved intercities on off public schools and private schools, putting fake things in databases, fake motivations for it, timing where people are going to walk to film illusions and fake arrays. As an array as collusion, where they attach everyone to fake and change the words to, and fake meanings of it, which are roles with the people also in the cases doing that, putting same sequence shifts and collusions on all sides of criminal and civil cases. Trantolo is one of the lawyer groups recorded involved with this. All kinds of natures of organized crimes out of the old judicial branch offices and conjunctions to it, like Route 3, also with the names along Route 175 involved, with interbranch forging and switching names, refusing to get on paper because it will bring this up, how they've been using it. Increasingly, the judicial branch offices has roles with names next to campuses with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and planting arrays in and as collusion /S, also with sequence shifts and fake conversations that Channel 3 News, WFSB pretended to with me. For example, about the World Trade Center attack. And they pretend to have fake conversations with fake locations with themselves and with others too about that and about relative legal cases. And they put fake ties, fake natures of ties to me with doctors when I was a kid. Fake ties to me completely when I was a kid and now as an adult too. There's a Leahy family involved with that for the kids that made confessions. And they don't even, in other words, they just repeated things. They were influenced to repeat things to make it look. So someone tries to tell on it and makes it look like they had communication with someone's kids and things like that. They have their own kids' roles with the principal sex offender and more involved with that and more confessions and demonstrations. But it's also through them keeping their mouth shut. There are women with the name, there are two female principals with the name O'Connor that were brought up, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by the people involved with the home break-ins in my area through time and with their roles with foreign and domestic intelligence at Central Connecticut State University. Increasingly, people involved with the military with them, inter-services, like with the Burstein family, a Collatz family, also involved with the FBI and with the witness protection program, involved with Joe DeMoro's confessions and roles with home break-ins and people with a van per him. Like a Marco Mancini will tell you, I don't know him. There, he was influenced. In other words, we have one second conversation about Mancini peppers and Boom Boom Mancini when I was like first or second grade. They're planting evidences on all sides of my house and make it look like it would be like you could live somewhere, like you could live in a suburban / urban or suburban. And you could have people that live near you and were your age, but you never saw them on a campus. You barely know them. You don't know them at all. There's people my age, in my grade, I met them all that live a street over, for example. And increasingly, those are people that haven't been told fake things, to have them repeat that. And worse, influences over them. As people involved with people that are speaking with the public television and the community service and their Facebook page now too, not just the television, it's all kinds of that's why they have their Facebook pages blocked. It's not because they want to be for kids too, like the town meetings and things like that. They have rules with wire and mail crime acts and methods through elections too that are rigged. But this is right where and how the differences between Republicans and Democrat or things called politics that are not politics, roles of that self-valued being haven't been. The names of the people of the sciences, forgiveness is because they are abridged. And per that which is collusion /S, which is layers other, but where we can discern it, we have to look where there are collusions at the same time with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists. We have to pay attention to their predicate acts with facts and methods of them, because they have roles with terrorism and with torture syntax, simultaneously with radical and with extremism, as collusions with the World Trade Center attack, as collusion /S with that original constitutional abridgment, maintenance, and screening method that our founders communicated for us to seize, to get right through. And all we have to do is show it, know it. So please, they have the experts on history, including with the experts on law, and they have self-valued roles with it, replacing what James Madison communicated. Get them on paper, one name and sequence, please. And so we can get there are criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists. Time collusion /S with the World Trade Center attack spot. Channel 3 News is increasingly recording, confessing, demonstrating, confirming roles with this, right? And also by their silence after they attach me fake conversations with themselves. They have wire crime acts and methods regarding the validity of what's said online and things like that. They're leaving out and faking and valuing that haven't been faked regarding exceptions. Get them on paper, one name and sequence. They have the Facebook page of the principal sex offender involved with more digital crimes, with Whiting Forensics, and with the campuses further, with this Joshua Julian, and with the interbranch kids and adults used as collusions with those values. Per worse, these are the same ones with overt criminal enterprise, private ones. A whole bunch of people in the Britain Superior Court involved with a Jonathan Maiano and a Rick Cianfaglione, involved with people on my street with proven child abusers, leaders of the kids, first worst roles with them, identity theft, fraud, slanders with them, sequence shifts with them, falsified police reports roles with them, and their collusions with the police that attached me to fake conversations with them as a kid, and now as an adult. I don't give a fuck. It doesn't matter who was guilty, because there's, in other words, motivations. That's why they can't get on paper, because there are other bodies involved that are foreign. These are people involved, time collusions right at the World Trade Center attack spot, and with the names at the World Trade Center next to it and the court next to it. Again, too, names that have been involved with the ones like a Detective Samuda and a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, involved with predicate acts and methods of them at Central Connecticut State University before the World Trade Center attack, and at the sides of the campus, and how it's at a town line, though, with the people that enter cities through time. They have roles with Wethersfield campuses through time, Rocky Hill campuses. We need to get them on paper, one name and sequence. There are a whole bunch of other countries, overt criminal enterprises, and private ones, grouped other than even themselves, they understand. All rise.